All right, so welcome to this week's podcast. I'm still Josh, and this is still
Katie.
the Katie Cools. So I'm going to start this one off with a proverb, and then it will be fairly obvious where we're going with this. But so Proverbs 14:16, the wise fear the Lord and shun evil, but a fool is hot-headed and yet feels secure. So we don't want to be foolish. We want to be aware of this thing that I'm about to say, but it's great. It's a great indicator, but it's not a very good driver. It's not something that should be the master in our lives. And that thing is feelings. We all have feelings about all sorts of different things. Some of them positive feelings, some of them very negative feelings. And we oftentimes, where I've gotten myself into the most trouble, is where I let my feelings overwhelm me to the point where I start responding or reacting in a way that is very, well, I'm offended, or I'm feeling attacked, or I'm feeling this. And the situations where I can point to where I've gotten myself into the most trouble, or where I got to go and apologize to a bunch of people, or that kind of thing, is where I have done something out of what I felt versus what I know, or what I should have done regardless of my feelings. And so the first thing I want to unpack there is what are some... So Katie, what are some of the top 3 feelings, good, bad, or indifferent, that you have in any given week?
Let's see. Probably joy.
Okay.
Anger. And I'm trying to find a third. Those are very different, but I can't
So kind of filtering those two out. That's perfect. So
Yeah.
with what kind of environment or situation brings out a feeling of joy?
Being thankful is something that
Cool. Okay.
that really works for me. I have this little thing on my phone. You can write a message and have it, on under the clock when you are on your phone. And what I wrote is choose joy. So every day going into life, because when I was younger, I had a lot of I had a time in my life where I kind of had fake happiness, where I was trying to be super joyful and super upbeat for my family, and it wasn't based on anything solid. So then learning okay, what is true happiness, or really joy? And that's found in God, and a really good way to feel joy, or I don't know, that just sounds weird,
Sure.
but is
Experience
through being thankful. Because if you look through your life, you're okay, I woke up today. That makes me happy. I have an awesome job that I really like, and that's not the case for everybody. But for me, that's what I have: a wonderful family who loves me. I have wonderful friends who love me. There's so much that I can be thankful for, and that gives me joy and brings me joy.
That's perfect. I'm glad that you said that, because Colossians 3:17, and whatever you do, whether in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus, like we talked about last week, and giving thanks to God and the Father through him. So having that thankful heart leads to a feeling of joy or contentment or peace. And that's not Katie exclusive. If you do that,
it's not trademarked.
It's not trademarked. That will be a side effect of having that kind of an attitude, and choosing to reflect on, not necessarily even feelings, just reality, facts. Facts don't care about your feelings, right? We've heard that a bunch of times, where it's okay, if it's a fact, it's a fact. And it's not oh, does that make you feel uncomfortable? Oh,
and
I guess maybe it won't be true.
That's being challenged in our culture of well, I don't feel like I'm, this way.
Yep.
But it's no, that's a fact, honey.
And that's the thing that we'll consistently run into if we are being driven by what we feel, is where, and this is where I'll lead into the next question there, is oftentimes because I'm definitely more of a feeler or a feeling type person. So I have to check myself often with feeling too much or over analyzing the situation to where I feel like somebody's attacking me or I feel like somebody doesn't like me or whatever. And so as a huge extrovert, if I know somebody doesn't like me or I feel like somebody doesn't like me, that really bothers me. Bothers me more than somebody that is maybe more is more of an introvert or not as much of a people pleaser where they're like, it doesn't really bug me, whatever.
Yeah.
So when you feel angry or when you experience that kind of feeling, what kind of social situation or life situation do you find yourself in that gets that feeling to kind of like, oh, I feel this way?
I mean, my family likes to discuss a lot of different things. So sometimes I can just get upset discussing whatever, if it's political or whatever. Or I really like to have a plan for things. So I get really stressed out if it doesn't follow the plan. That's definitely something that I would like step back and kind of like, okay, this is not the end of the world if we don't get there on time or if this doesn't get done when it needs to. But yeah, it's kind of, I guess it's, well, did you ask like what?
Yeah, no, you answered the question
okay.
of just what kind of a situation gets you to feel angry or put you in a spot where that feeling starts to encroach on how you make your decisions or how you navigate the situation.
I don't like people disagreeing with me, said something or but then there's so much today that in just normal conversations with everything going on with the pandemic and with all of the racial injustice and the election, there's so many things that it's really easy to get upset and angry about. It's like, well, I don't want to wear a mask. And you sound super selfish saying that. And you can just get into a lot of different conversations and debates about it. But yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yep.
So
I mean, that's a great point there in just realizing like, okay, when we have these feelings on whatever topic it is, or if it's something that we agree with or disagree with, we'll have strong feelings about. We have to make sure that we're filtering those feelings through what does God want in the situation. Again, going back to God's will, like what does God will? What does God desire in this situation? What kind of outcome would glorify Him? What kind of outcome would He be able to do if Jesus was here walking around in the situation? If Jesus saw this, what would He do?
How would He
respond?
React? Yeah.
How would He react? What would He be feeling in that moment? And kind of similar to what we talked about last week with intentional living, and when we were talking about the story with Lazarus, it's like, okay, Jesus was intentional about about waiting. Right? He knew the feelings and everything that he would cause in people. A lot of times I kind of laugh, not at Jesus, but like you see Jesus cause a lot of anxiety in people's lives. Like there's a lot of feelings of like, what? Where you got a bunch of people out in the wilderness. You got somebody that was like a near and dear friend that like needs healing now. You got, all this stuff. And Jesus would intentionally...
You don't have enough food.
Push the envelope to get that feeling out there so that there was some exposure and be like, okay, where's your faith?
Yeah.
Okay, where's your heart here? Because feelings are a great indicator of what's really going on inside.
Yeah.
And oftentimes God will use that almost in the way of like a surgery where he's trying to get the bad stuff to the top so that he can address it. Because so often we'll bury things, we'll bury our feelings, we'll stuff our feelings, and we'll stuff those emotions because we just don't like the way that it makes us feel. We feel out of control. We feel embarrassed. We feel angry. We feel way too happy, way too, whatever. And it's just like, okay, we gotta suppress that. We gotta like make sure, okay, not too much. Like we gotta be balanced. And especially when those feelings turn negative.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the verses also in Romans 12:19 says, "Do not take revenge, my dear friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, it is mine to avenge. I will repay, says the Lord." Mm-hmm. So when we have these negative feelings about, oh, well, this is wrong, and this is wrong, and this is wrong, there are so many times where God will let me vent. God will let me get my feelings out there and just, blather on and on about how frustrated I am. And sometimes a person's actually there too, and they get to hear what I feel about the situation. But almost every single time, God will pull me back into his presence and be like, okay, I've heard what you had to say. Now give it to me. Let me handle this. This is not your thing to go and jump on a soapbox and go rah, rah, rah and make it happen. Like, watch me work. Watch me do the heavy lifting. Watch me change hearts. Watch me convict. Watch me convince. Watch me bring my children back to me. It breaks my heart, some of the things that people are saying. It breaks my heart to see what some of the people are doing, and the blindness with some of this stuff where we say, oh, I care about this, but you don't see it over here. Mm-hmm. As Christians, we get called out on that all the time for saying, oh, we really value this, but over here we're doing something that's totally the opposite.
Yeah.
We need to be teachable, and we need to not be so like people are walking on eggshells with our feelings to where they can't be like, hey, bro, like you just said you care about this, but you're doing this. Like, what's up with that? Oh, man, I didn't see that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I want to change that. Mm-hmm. But if we're so focused on feelings and the feelings almost become an idol.
Yeah, and it's being focused on self, just kind of what we were talking with intentional living. It's not about us. No. Like, we have a saying in my family, it's not all about you, Fire Pants. And there's a whole story behind it, telephone Pictionary. But anyways, it's all about, like, it's not about us. It's about God. And so, we have these feelings. And one of the things is we can go to God to help us. Like, hey, God, I don't know how to feel about this. Or, hey, God, I don't think, like, these are the right feelings. Like, there's so many times that I pray and just like, God, please help me, with these feelings. And and it's really, you have to go back to, am I being like Christ? Mm-hmm. And because, Jesus was angry at times. Mm-hmm. He, went to the temple and flipped some tables and
talked about anger.
But that was righteous and it was intentional. Mm-hmm. And so just like, you don't want to get carried away with your feelings, especially if they're not, I guess, almost like the right kind of feelings to have, because if I just go out and be like, I'm so mad at this, but there's other responses to things. What Jesus did was exactly what Jesus is supposed to do, but that doesn't mean that we should go in and burn a strip club or whatever it is. Like, that's not what we should do. That's arson.
Yep. But I mean, and it's cool though to see in situations like that too, where every time I drive by one of those, I pray for the people inside, and I pray that God will shut it down. Yeah. And he's answered that prayer a few times.
A Planned Parenthood thing.
Where it's like you pray, okay, God, be with the people inside, shut this down. I don't believe this is from you.
So that being said, you have to kind of keep your feelings in check in a way. It's like, I'm not saying oppress your feelings or whatever. Or
but don't post about it on Facebook. That's not going to change anything.
But don't... It kind of goes back to the reacting versus respond. Don't just react because you're like, oh, I got really mad. Like, take a step back, look at what the Bible has to say, pray about it, talk to people you trust about it.
Yeah. And I haven't finished all the way reading this, or I haven't finished reading this podcast or this blog post all the way, but the meat of it basically was this incredibly wise woman wrote this piece about how she just got off of, like, one of her birthday gifts to herself was a 40-day fast of all social media.
And it was a birthday gift to yourself?
Yes, which, I mean, honestly, if you think about it, what a beautiful birthday gift to give yourself. It's like, I'm going to not be on social media for 40 days.
Especially if you are an influencer.
Exactly. Yeah. She's a huge influencer. And so she did that, but one of the things that she kind of came away with, and a truth that she's like, wow, this is interesting, is that one of the primary things that social media does, and we can see this, everybody can see this, that it is a feelings-based platform where we get to share our feelings about, you fill in the blank,
Facebook
whatever
asks
it is.
you, how are you feeling?
How are you feeling?
Oh my gosh,
right?
Really?
Yes.
Really?
And what all too often will happen and this was just like, wow, I never thought of this before, is we will post our feelings about something, anything, whether it's food or an emotion.
I hated the weather today.
Yep. But then by us posting that and getting it out there, really in a very non-actionary, or like we don't do anything really about it other than type a few words and then boom, verbally vomit on people. We leave it at that. And where that
if you're just gonna say something and you don't do any, it's
exactly.
Yeah.
Where you
it's
say
like,
something,
you care about this, like
big,
then
long
do something
spiel.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you post about it and you get that emotional like thing off your chest and you're like, there, I did something. But really you didn't. You talked about it, but you didn't actually live it out. You didn't actually walk it out. And that's
it's
where
just your feelings.
Yeah. And that's where
those
feelings
are so unreliable too. That's another thing.
Yeah.
Is I think we talked about this maybe when we were talking about the will of God, of how like it doesn't change, but like we as people change, which is super good. And like thank the Lord that we change because we're sinful people. But like it's a good thing that we can like change the way we feel, but that is something they are unreliable at times because, they change easily and you can go from, happy to sad and then whatever, especially if you haven't eaten.
One of the most destructive things. Yeah. Oh, I get hangry all the time. Jeremiah 17:9 talks about how the heart is deceitful. Who can know it? Like, we got to be really careful because when people start saying, "Oh, follow your heart" or "do whatever you feel like doing," that's very, very dangerous. It's super dangerous because when you're telling this to children or even adults, it's like, okay, feelings are a great indicator of what's going on and everything like that. But they're a horrible, horrible driver. Yeah, if you're driving your life based off of your feelings, it's like, I don't feel like going to work every day, but I do it because I need to. I do it because, and oftentimes
you need to live, you need to provide for your family. It's not like, I don't feel like going to work today.
Yeah, you have to do what's right, and then your feelings will follow.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, some of the hardest decisions you have to make, you're not going to feel like doing them.
But then in the end, you can have that feeling of like, when you get home from a long day, it's like, I did not want to go to work today, but then you have this feeling of, but I provided for my family. I feel accomplished. Like I feel like content, and knowing that like, I did this for somebody else or whatever. I can eat.
Yes. Hallelujah. Let's see. There's one more verse. Kind of talking about feeling for others or bearing with one another. There's a verse in Colossians 3:13 that talks about bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as Christ forgave you. That is huge.
Yeah.
Because again, talking about feelings, there's things that we're going to do. There's things that we're going to say. There's decisions I'm going to make, stances I'm going to take, everything like that people are not going to disagree with. They're going to either misunderstand them or be upset or have a very strong feeling the other way.
Yeah.
Some of the friends that I had growing up still love them to death, but we feel very, very differently about a lot of stuff that's going on currently. Yeah. And it's sad when we isolate and when we polarize things so much to where, well, anybody that thinks that is an idiot. Like, okay, that's a really, feeling getting out of control to where now all of a sudden we can't even have a conversation.
You think too highly of yourself.
Exactly. But we got to be careful.
And I'm guilty of that too.
Me too. Me too. And it's like I'll get really hot and bothered about something and have such a strong feeling about it to where if I don't let any sort of dialogue take place, what I'm saying is I'm letting my feelings take control. I'm not forgiving people for being stupid or, what I perceive to be stupid. And I'm not being empathetic. I'm not having compassion on the situation. And then I also don't let it gets much more difficult for Jesus to come in and be like, actually, you were wrong on that. Like, actually, you didn't represent me accurately. Like, if I would have been doing this, this is what I would have done. Can I walk you through what you should have said? Can I walk you through how you should have handled this? And it can get more difficult because I let my feelings rise above what I should be doing, what I'm called to be doing. And in any season of life, you're going to have that battle of feelings versus your faith, feelings versus what you're called to do, feelings versus what you want to do. And most of the time, those are going to be at odds with each other.
Yeah.
But when you do what God's called you to do, but when you do what God's called you to do, your feelings will catch up eventually. They are that weak, that shallow, that impressionable, to where when you do the right thing, all of a sudden your feelings are going to be, yeah, that was a good decision. Yeah, you know what? That was right. That was right. That was difficult, but that was right. I feel rewarded.
Eating, salad or kale when you don't like it. It's like, oh, but you're rewarded in the end, It's good for your body, but you don't want to do it.
We'll have Danny on for like a little excerpt at the end talking about his feelings about kale, but it's very entertaining about that. So, anyways, the bottom line for us that we want to communicate to you guys is just that feelings are great. I love feelings. I love being a feeler. I love laughing. I love crying. I love experiencing all of those emotions and everything like that. But I have to be very careful. We have to be very careful to not let those things drive us and be the primary thing that influences our decisions. If I feel something, that's a good start, but that can't be what I'm waiting for to do the thing that I'm supposed to do. Right. We are called to be all in with an all heart when we're serving God. We're called to be passionate about that, to be authentic about that, to be real about that, to be really feeling it in that way, right? If we're not feeling like, we're getting close to God, or we're not feeling like, we're worshiping in a real way, like, let's switch it up so that we do feel that. It needs to be an encounter.
Give up too.
Yeah, don't just give up because it feels dry or whatever.
It's
like
doing
no,
that.
You got to step up and do that.
Yeah.
But the world is looking for something authentic. The world is looking for something real. The world is looking for something powerful. And feelings just aren't going to cut it.
Yeah.
We have to do better. We have to do experience God in a way that is stronger and more influential than that. And so just to encourage you guys with that, just that they're not a bad thing. Feelings are not a bad thing. But if you're letting your feelings dictate what kind of a day you have or what kind of mood you're in, and even what you're posting on social media, be very, very careful with that, because that will get you into trouble pretty quick in your own heart, but then also with anybody else, because anybody comments, anybody says anything, and all of a sudden they've offended your feelings, and all of a sudden you just unleash hell on this person because they disagree with you, or because they don't feel the same way as you do. And it's like, we got to be really, really careful with that. People that I run into, they might not feel like talking. Love them. Be okay with that. I don't need to force somebody to have a conversation with me. If I ask somebody and like, oh, hey, you want to go grab a bite to eat? Oh, no, I don't really feel like it. I'm not really hungry. Okay, but I don't need to force them to go eat with me. Like, or if someone's, I was just feeling like just sitting down and just chatting. Like, okay, do it. Like we were talking about before. Like, be intentional about that. But they're great. It's a great thing to interact with people. It's a great relationship building kind of thing when you can converse about your feelings, and when you can have those feelings going back and forth. Nobody feels like they can relate to somebody if they're just always like no emotion, no feeling, no anything. Like, you want to be able to see somebody smile. You want to be able to hear somebody laugh and do that kind of stuff. But to just do whatever you feel like is some of the worst advice that we could possibly
follow your
heart. So don't follow what the Word of God says.
Follow
be compassionate,
Jesus.
Be loving, and your feelings will follow that. So I love you guys. Have a great week.
Bye.